like people who are going to decide to have Thanksgiving dinners or any kind of social gathering, you could say, oh, you're going to have all these rules and stuff, but you can't control your sloppy guests.
No.
Yeah.
Especially if drinks are involved.
I was gonna
or
say
anything like that. Everybody gets real shouty, and
Yeah.
shouty is spitty. So
Yeah.
it's,
And then
yeah.
touchy, especially if they're a little tipsy, the touchy,
Yeah.
and can't stop that. Yeah.
Particles everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
So welcome everyone to our little Thanksgiving virtual roundtable dinner. I hope everyone brought food or has food handy. I'm going to start introducing you all one by one. So first up, we have comic and playwright and the creator and co-star of Bit Players, Kris Siddiqi. Do you want to say hello?
Oh, hello.
And then we got food culturalist Ryan Hinkson. If you go over to his Instagram page, Eat Famous, you'll see some fine-ass burgers and pizza and fried chicken that'll make me want to serve that at Thanksgiving instead. Say hello, Ryan.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
And then we have the woman that made the best quiche I ever had in my life. You know her from Mary's Kitchen Crush. It's Mary Berg.
Hey guys, super pumped about this. So thanks for having me.
I think a lot of us, I wonder, how many of us are celebrating Thanksgiving and how are we doing it?
No, I'm celebrating Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving has kind of always been my favorite holiday, I guess.
But of course.
It's kind of like, yeah, it's like Christmas, but you don't have to stress about getting a present for anybody. You get all the good food, which is awesome. But this year, to be honest, like I've been really strict with Bubbles and with keeping it in kind of the household. When all this stuff started, I got shingles, which is weird because the commercials don't tell you if you're a 30-year-old woman, you're going to get shingles. So I was like, thanks, all those things. They're like, are you 7,000 years old? And da-da-da-da-da. But so we've been really strict. So we're basically just keeping it in our actual household. So rather than making a turkey, we're probably going to do like a chicken, like a small turkey, and kind of keep it that way. It's a bit of a bummer because Thanksgiving, again, it's one of my favorite. But yeah, keeping it small this year. And maybe not doing the virtual thing. We did the virtual thing for Easter where we kind of did that with a bunch of people in our family, but we might keep it pretty low key this year.
Yeah, similar to Mary, gonna probably keep it really, really tight, close to home. I have one of those families that's like usually pre-COVID dinners are like 30 to 40 people. So definitely gonna miss that. And I had a baby at the end of December and, unfortunately, like there's family members in an extremely close family that she hasn't met yet just because as we were just starting to kind of relax things, and now it feels like we should, tighten it again. So we're not going to be doing, the little introduction. So it'll probably just be us here at home, maybe some virtual check-ins. And yeah, it'll be a different one for sure.
So Kris, what about you? What's the plans for you guys?
I don't believe the virus is real, so I'm getting together with all my friends. We're going to a bar. We've bought out the Great Hall. We're just going to cough on each other. No. Actually, the great thing is that my parents and my sisters, so I have 3 sisters and my mom and my dad, and we have big family celebrations for everything. We've had 3 or 4 birthdays during the pandemic. So I think what we're going to do and what we always do is go to my folks' place, and they've been in our bubble since the beginning of this thing, but we sit outside. So I think it's just going to be an outside dinner, and my mom's gotten to the point where she just doesn't cook anything anymore. So she's like, let's just order everything. So I think we're going to order the food, eat it outside, and then be done with it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I
nice
mean,
and simple.
Yeah, so that's kind of similar. So I'm kind of in between what Ryan and Kris are doing. So, I mean, the backstory with my family, though, is Thanksgiving in my family is a 100+ event in previous years because, and there's there's an explanation to this. So we are Tamil refugees, like we came here as Tamil refugees, and I was, of my generation, I'm the oldest, right? So we were kind of the first I was the first of my family. We have 200 people in the city, by the way. Our family is 200 strong in this city. I was the first in that family of our generation to be attending school and start understanding Thanksgiving through school. So I came home and I'm like,
Right.
yo, you got to make a turkey. And so, the immigrant family, like, well, we're making this turkey thing. Y'all want to come over? And so our household became the designated Thanksgiving household as our family grew and grew, as more of our family immigrated over. And so last year, more than 100 people in my parents' backyard, tents, things open, like it's multiple turkeys, some with some curry-fied turkeys, some different, some actual mutton curry and spreads like that. So that's going to be a huge shift down for us, where I think so our family, we're still going to do it in the backyard, but we are doing it like in terms of not our household, but like my parents, my sisters, my brother, like my siblings, and that's it. And but still social distancing. My parents have not been in our bubble the whole time because my dad's immunocompromised, so we do not break that.
That's good.
That's how we're doing it.
I was going to say, Rod, was it your family that Doug Ford was talking about, being like, yo, man, everybody's having these 200 people gatherings? That's what I always just imagine all the Muslim families, all the Tamils, all the Sikhs who are in Brampton being like, yo, no one cares. Just come over. Come.
Oh, I mean, okay, so not me. I haven't gone to any of my family's weddings, but they have had weddings. I will say, it was actually funny. One of my cousins was putting a ring on his wife when Doug Ford said you can no longer have 50 people in your backyard. He had that wedding already, like the day of his wedding. And then they showed up. The police showed up in his backyard, and they're like, well, but he had all like the kind of the protocols in place, like social distancing, masks for everyone, the main parties get COVID tested and stuff. But I mean, but even that kind of a wedding is part of the problem too, right? Because what they do in preparation of that kind of wedding is they make sure their whole wedding party gets tested, and they clog up lines when you had that mad rush at the end of August. People clogging up the testing lines because they want their vacation, they want their weddings, they want all of these things. And it's like, well, like, you're not showing symptoms, right? That's what they but I mean, so I will give them credit for doing everything they can, but B, you can't really control it because people, your guests, that's a whole other thing, right? Any of you who are holding a Thanksgiving dinner, for the people who are going to decide, because like people who are going to decide to have Thanksgiving dinners or any kind of social gathering, you could say, oh, you're going to have all these rules and stuff, but you can't control your sloppy guests.
No.
Yeah.
Especially if drinks are involved.
I was going to say.
Anything like that. Everybody gets real shouty, and shouty is spitty. So
and then touchy, especially if they're a little tipsy, touchy, and can't stop that. Yeah.
Particles everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you also get that aunt who's like, I mean, sure, coronavirus is a thing, but I'll never have coronavirus. Give me a hug.
You're not going to hug your auntie.
Yeah.
And you get guilted, you hug her, and then you're like, yeah.
Well,
the next 2 weeks, you're like, oh my God, what is this? Is this allergies? Am I sick? Yeah.
Okay, so now let's we'll talk about kind of like going into this Thanksgiving. I mean, this wave just started hitting us. I mean, I actually planned this roundtable before this second wave started picking up steam. And so the topic of conversation that I was going to hit you guys up with just keeps morphing as the things get more serious.
Yeah.
I did not know Dr. Eileen Vela is going to come out and say, yo, social bubbles ain't a thing no more, right? I mean, but in terms of like, so they're telling us that we can't really celebrate. Well, Trudeau's like, well, never mind Thanksgiving, but we can give Christmas a shot. Like, they're telling us all these things, but then our kids are still going to schools. My kids are in classrooms of more than 20 kids. Every business imaginable is still pretty much open. So like, I mean, what do you guys make of the mixed messaging we're getting?
It's insane. My whole thing with this entire pandemic, it's very weird. I have this theory that psychologically we're all going to come out of this completely changed. I always harken back to, remember years ago when that whole Eastern Seaboard had that blackout? Mm-hmm. And we were all just stuck in this blackout. That was like a shared experience that kind of only we had, And this, talking of shared experiences, this now is an entirely global shared. I don't think humanity has ever had a shared experience like this. So, I talked to my wife about it, and I'm always like, so we're having to put my kid back in school because he was doing the virtual school. Mm-hmm. But the teacher showed up twice and then said, I'm out, got to go back to my old school. So he hasn't had a teacher in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. So this whole thing has just been, it's crazy confusing. But I also, at the end of the day, I just think to myself, we all have to give each other a break, because this is the weirdest thing we've all ever gone to. And we want to blame the TDSB, and we want to blame this doctor, and we want to blame this premier. But I think as we all go through it step by step, it's just, there are some things that, you know, you really have to look back at, and in retrospect will be like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. Like, I look at this, exactly what you were saying, Rob, that this whole thing with the schools opening, and you think, why are schools open if restaurants and strip clubs can't be open? I just don't get the logic behind that. Here you have this microcosm of germs and people just bouncing around with each other and then sending them home. But you can't go to, you know, Sneaky D's or Southern Accents or whatever, because you might get caught. I don't get the logic behind that. And I haven't heard any reporter or anything just straight up be like, yo, what's the deal, man? Like, why open school? I don't get this. So it is a bit weird. The mixed messaging has been all over the place.
Well,
and that's probably why people are, you know, going to Trinity Bellwoods and randomly making out with each other. And you know what I mean? Like, it's just,
hormones are the end of the pandemic. Like, that is the worst thing to happen to anything, because it's all these teenagers and everyone's like, what? But I think the mixed messaging from the beginning, like, it's kind of two camps. It's like super mixed messaging, which is true. Like, there's been so much flip-flopping. It's been like, I feel like people thought that the initial kind of information we've gotten, like people blaming Dr. Tam for being like, no, masks, like maybe not like enforcing mask policy, but then moving forward and being like, oh wait, new science has told us masks are working because this is a new thing. And people who get angry at that, even though science evolves, like everything, knowledge evolves, I would prefer to have knowledge on what to do when you get strep throat now versus in the 1800s. Like, I don't love leeches. And to me, it's seeing that shift and seeing the people who are really resistant to new information and they just want everything up front, first day of the pandemic, what's going on, tell me exactly how I'm going to live for the next year, versus this evolving thing. But I think the thing that's tricky is that I think people think that as soon as a new piece of information comes out, it like negates every piece of information.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas it's like, masks are great, but the number one thing we need to do is physical distancing. Be outside, physical distancing, and masks. Those are like three. It's a trifecta. It's not like doing one cancels out the other one.
Right.
So it's, the mixed messaging is really hard with school in particular. That's bonkers, especially with Thanksgiving coming up. People are probably going to see their elderly relatives, or even if it is distance, it still is closer contact than maybe on a normal weekend. And it's nerve-wracking because you have this kind of microcosm where there are kids going, all gathering together and then splitting off into their own little zones. But like, for people to work, I know my editor, one of my cookbook editor, she had a baby. She stopped her mat leave ended probably 2 months into this. And then she tried going back to work, but staying home with her baby. The baby doesn't understand that there's now a difference between the mom relationship, that she's not always carte blanche available for her. And that's confusing. So having a daycare available for someone to be able to go back to work or school. So it kind of has to do with that. Like, the mixed messaging's there, but the school's also there so people can kind of get normalcy again. But that doesn't mean the pandemic's over. It's very confusing. I have no answer. It's just like, what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like in terms of, I understand why schools are open. Like you said, we need to get people back to work, right? So really, I think they should have invested more in keeping better protocols at school and better distancing at school, and not opening up supporting these businesses that need to stay closed. The ones the bars, the stuff that makes us sloppy and spread this disease. Like, those are the ones that the government should support and keep closed so that we could avoid this, because we know that the schools are necessary to get everyone else that can do a socially distanced job back to work. Right? Ryan, were you gonna add something there?
I was just gonna say, I really like Chris's point about kind of giving each other a break. I know even for myself at first, like, if someone wasn't exactly 6 feet away from me, I was having like a meltdown. And you've got to remember that even the people that are providing us with the messaging are slipping. Like, we're seeing politicians say, you know, don't be in groups, and then we're seeing them at weddings, and we're seeing them not wearing masks, and there's like so much confusion, no playbook, no protocol, like it's all brand new. and the range of emotions are just going to go like way up. Like sometimes I think, you know, there's people that are like, oh, I need my freedom. And I'm like, are you just being contrarian? There's some people that get sent to jail who are innocent and like they have to stay there. So I'm like, you can't stay in your incredible condo with like every streaming service. And I mean, I understand the need to be human and have a regular life, but I guess I always kind of fall on the side of like, you know, the short-term pain for long-term gain and maybe like life at this point. So yeah, but then again, I do understand that, you know, everybody's kind of just fumbling through this and we haven't had the most accurate and direct messaging, but then at the same time, we've seen some people kind of step up and work together that never would. So the scales are kind of always going like this. And I feel like you've got to flow with it. And if we just all lean into understanding that we want life to be great for ourselves, but just for everybody in general, hopefully we end up in the right place.
So now we know what people are going to talk about at the Thanksgiving table.
Very true.
They're talking about how the government gives them a leg and they take a whole arm and they get sloppy. But in terms of like first of all, actually, I did want to get back to the social bubble thing, right? Because they tell us, okay, in Toronto, you can't have a social bubble. Two of you lived in Pickering for a time. Would you not just go to Pickering and have family dinner there? Like, I mean, doesn't everyone in Toronto have a household in like the suburbs that they're going to go to and do it out there? Like,
well, and I think that's what happened when as soon as Ford announced like no social bubbles in Toronto, everybody just changed their plans to go north, go east, go west, and figure it out that way. And then I think it was like a couple days later that he's like, "Oh, just kidding, nowhere, we're done, you're gone, don't do it."
Yeah. But then, okay, so like let's talk about like let's say I mean, I know Mary, you're keeping it very tight and stuff, but like for the people who are going to try and do something, like what kind of anxiety do you think then goes into having that for the host? Do you think the host has like certain anxieties that they got to deal with now that they're hosting a Thanksgiving dinner?
Snitchy neighbors, probably one of them. Like, where are all those cars doing in front of your house?
Yeah, right.
So not catching COVID, but the snitches is what's the number one concern. You realize that's what
Has anyone been snitched on? I've been snitched on.
Have
but
you
I
really?
wasn't even I wasn't even having I had this was in June or something, but maybe it was a bit earlier, but I had my brother lives in the apartment that we used to, like the next door apartment that we used to live in. So he was on his property. We were on our property, like 20 feet apart. And then our friends live around the corner and they were in the other parking lot. So we were like a triangle of, yes, there were, I think, 8 of us, but it was like 2, me and my husband, my brother and his wife, my friend and his girlfriend, and like one other person over here. And the cops pulled up and we were all on private property and we did have wine, like all our own little bottle. And they pulled up and one of our group is I think has more of a storied past in terms of like she got into no good business in high school. And I've never seen someone drop a cup and walk away quicker.
Hold on a second, because like it's funny to me that of the 4 of us, the person who's been snitched is the white person.
I wasn't gonna say it, but you said it.
Like, how did that happen? And it's Mary Berg. It's Mary fucking Berg.
I was like, well, yeah, let's do it. Okay.
But now the friend that dropped the cup and walked away, was she white as well?
She's also white. I was like, she's like this tall. She's a tiny little white girl, and I was like, dude, you are not. I don't think this is gonna happen. But I feel like she felt real sneaky about it. She literally drop, cut, walk.
Yeah, I want to live in this universe.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. All us black and brown folk are already used to it, so we're just hyper aware now.
Yeah. But okay, so like, but in terms of so getting snitched on for your Thanksgiving dinner, so the police are going to be busy with that then, I guess. So, but in terms of but what about even just like Mary or any of you guys? Like, what do you recommend for these families that are going to try and like host a dinner? Like, how do you even host a social distance Thanksgiving dinner? Like, because where are all the kind of flags, the red, like like the places where you're gonna slip?
I mean, like, again, my family has been doing this since the beginning because of all these birthdays we've had. So I think really it's just keeping the same people in the same, I guess it's like not inviting anybody. Like, don't be like, hey, this is my new COVID boyfriend that I had during this whole quarantine. Just don't bring people. And I think it's the big thing too is that we've really had to realize to have like many different utensils to scoop food into different plates, just being like uber careful that way. But I think hosts really just, my mom is like, okay, just same people, everybody don't touch anybody else. That's it.
I think that makes sense. Yeah. Sorry, Ryan, go ahead.
Oh, no problem. I was just going to say, I think the majority of the host anxiety, if we're being truthful, may not necessarily come from like them hosting and making sure everything's right. I'd be worried personally about like everybody coming and like how safe have they been? Because I know what I'm doing in my house, right?
Yeah.
But like just because I love you or we're connected by blood or relationship doesn't mean that like I might love your habits or know exactly, how seriously you're taking things, right? And then like you don't want to be excluding family members, but maybe you do. Maybe it's the perfect time to exclude the people that you don't want to get your dinners. But you know what I mean? Like that probably would cause me anxiety as a host, like making sure that everybody that's coming is as diligent as I am, if I'm being diligent.
Yeah.
I think I would be, what I've been most nervous about, because I am like, we're all younger. If God forbid any of us were to get it, in theory, we'd be okay. Like that's, which I know is not a great way to think, but at the same time, I'm more worried about getting other people sick. Like that's why I wear a mask. It's not because it protects me, it's because it protects other people. So if I was hosting something, concerned that at my event, people would come and get it, from someone else or whatever. But I think the utensils point is a really good one. I think not doing the classic Thanksgiving of like a vat of potatoes and a whole turkey, but actually having it doled out and plated by one person, because then you know who's touched it. Mm-hmm. And in my mind, it's also, I feel like you guys are doing it right. Like doing it outside is smart. So fingers crossed it's nice out. And I know there's been a huge run on like heat lamps at Home Depot.
Right.
But genuinely, I think that's the best way to do it. I don't think inside is a great option.
Ryan hit on something that definitely would be my number one anxiety if it was my role to host. It's the exclusion factor. Like, who do you exclude? Like, if other because I have this problem whenever I have a party or something. It's like, oh, I can only fit this many people, but if I invite this person, I have to invite this person. And how imagine that anxiety now with Thanksgiving dinner. Like, do you if you're mapping that out, when people find out that you had a Thanksgiving dinner and you didn't invite them, I don't know if this is as much of a concern for people who are not brown, but it's a huge concern.
I was just gonna say,
but I was gonna say it, but also, Mary, you brought up a good point earlier. You mentioned the grandmas. Like, if we are holding a Thanksgiving dinner, how do you do it without Nana? Like, how do you do it?
Yeah.
Right. We don't all have a Mary Berg in our family to, throw down. Like most of us rely on mom and grandma. Yeah.
Yeah, really.
No, but also you don't want to infect them, but then but you also, because they're obviously the most vulnerable, but like, how are they going to be feeling about not being invited? Like, or like, it's for your own safety. Like, would that excuse fly?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you're old and cranky, you might just start holding it against people, right? Like all my Muslim family members would take this as like, okay, well, don't speak to him again. But being like, yo, man, there's a pandemic going on. Cut me some slack. But I think so my wife right now is up in Aurelia taking care of her father because he's old. He's 83 now. So it's just a kind of the elderly taken care of. But we have to, now it's this whole thing of going, now if our kid's going back to school, well, now she can't take care of him because she has to go back up there and all that spreads. But I think it's one of those things, definitely, like he's 83 and he listens to nothing but CBC News. So he gets all this information and he's pretty, I think he's very understandable at the fact of like, okay, look, I get it. Numbers and this and that and distance. So you really have to be a sour old codger if you're going to hold this against your family. But
yeah.
COVID is kind of like the ultimate excuse these days. Like,
really?
Yeah, I double struck. Like, I got a baby and COVID. I can get my way out of anything these days.
Yeah, dude.
The baby. COVID. Yeah. Ultimate excuse.
My kid's 10 and I still use him as an excuse, man.
Yeah.
It's like an introvert's dream. I love canceling plans. And now it's just, it's perfect.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
But
like, I mean, earlier this summer, I did joke that like the reason all these brown people are rushing to get married is because this is the first time they could like reduce their wedding sizes down from 600, and they have a legit
Yeah.
excuse.
We don't have to invite auntie this and auntie number 16 and cousin number
Yeah.
3. And yeah.
That was the mad rush. But but in terms of like, okay, like you were Mary, you were saying earlier, like, okay, yeah, we have to have one person doling it out, or you and Kris were talking about this kind of format. One of the things that Dr. Gelman, who by the way agrees with us on a lot of points, he agrees that none of like that people are not going to follow these rules, unfortunately, that people are not going to be doing this only with like celebrating Thanksgiving with this household. And he also said that people are not going to do this individually plated or like like innovating the way they serve out meals. He feels that like there are people who are so hard up on the traditions of Thanksgiving, including having a massive turkey, including somebody carving the turkey, including all this shared plate. What are the staples? Like the shared plate setups are, it's what? Turkey,
mashed potatoes, turkey, cranberry sauce, stuffing, green beans. Yeah, and it's all in a vat. Like everything's in a giant tray. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, I mean, I don't know if you, from your experiences, I know my family is cool with, because you know we fucking threw some mutton in there already, right? We're cool with changing and switching it up. But your families, are they hard up on what the menu, the traditional menus, and the traditional format of a Thanksgiving dinner?
Generally, yeah. But I mean, we're not seeing my parents this year, which is gonna suck because like dinners at my parents are always incredible. And I was thinking about like, you know, the whole idea of like, you know, there's certain family members that make incredible things. And I was talking to some people thinking about like an idea where like you could maybe get like a couple of days before, get the best person at certain dishes to like host like a little live like Zoom demo of it. And then you recreate your own, or maybe you do it like during the day, like everyone just kind of hooks up laptops and it's not just the virtual dinner, but like the recipe so that you can follow.
I love that.
Yeah. Are you doing it, Mary? Is it you can do it for all of us now?
No, yeah. You guys want to learn pumpkin pie? I do a good pumpkin pie.
Please, yes.
That's the thing, though. But you're right. Like Ryan's right. There's certain dishes that only taste as good when that one person makes it. Like even when I make my Nana's lemon meringue pie or my aunt's like pumpkin side thing that she always did, it doesn't taste as good, and that is a bummer. Like that, I think, is one of the great things about Thanksgiving, is that it's kind of always everyone has that, like, one person brings this and this is the thing that they make, and at least that's how it is in my house. It's kind of more potlucky, like someone makes the main, but there's always sides brought, and that's definitely going to be a huge bummer, because like it definitely tastes, certain dishes taste a certain way when someone makes it, and you can actually like taste the difference even if you follow the recipe to a T. It totally changes everything. And that's a huge bummer that I didn't realize until now, Ryan. Thanks. Yeah.
But then the funny thing with my family is that we've changed, like diets have changed throughout the years. So when we used to be a really sugary, sweet family, but now we're really like, let's dole out the yams and let's make sure the stuffing has only this amount of bread. So slowly we've been changing, and I think it's a lot of just health stuff too with my parents, my dad's cholesterol, my mom's heart, my sister changing her diet. So we've been kind of used to change throughout our whole lives. So the fun thing actually for us is going, oh, what's something new we can bring to, like, I love Brussels sprouts. And there was a year that I brought it and everyone was like, oh God, but I cooked them in a way where they're like, okay.
Yeah.
So there's always, and that's really interesting too, how much humans just have to strive on tradition, how much some humans just need tradition to hold on to.
I guess now, because like we feel like so much has kind of been stripped away, you really want ownership of like the things that make you feel whole or like quote unquote normal. So it might be really, really difficult to get people to part with like the family dinners and the traditions and doing it a new way. Just because so much feels different, people are clamoring for things that feel the same.
Yeah, I mean, because that's the thing, like, even because I was saying the way my family works, like in terms of doing kind of these social distance outdoor things, well, it's like, well, it can't be Thanksgiving dinner, it has to be Thanksgiving lunch. Like you don't want to be outside in the dark. What the fuck? Is there still mosquitoes? Are the mosquitoes still alive right now? But like whatever it is, like I mean, it's cold enough, right? But and Dr. Gellman was like, well, yeah, I don't even think they would want to budge that. It still has to be dinner. It has to be, you know. So I don't know. Do you think, like in your experience, are people as hard? I know from my experience, I don't think they're as hard up in terms of my families. I don't know about you guys. Are they going to be holed up on the whole dinner, this, that, like all of these things?
My parents are West Indian, so they're like very, very specific about things. Like the idea of like a Christmas brunch or Thanksgiving lunch, like that would never fly. Or like they would do it, but you would still have to have a massive dinner on top of it because just how it goes, right? So
yeah, I mean, my family is pretty like we're pretty malleable. Although I will say, and Rod, you know this, but like, you know, on the Muslim side of my family, it's very like they're very strict Muslim, so it's hard for them to break tradition. We were supposed to have a big family gathering before this, and it was heartbreaking for my cousins and aunties that when we realized that we couldn't have this big family get together, and they were still trying, but it was like, no, we got to cancel it. So I think there's going to be a little column A, a little column B, just people who are going, let's get together. But also, I mean, I just thought of all those people who like have, you know, some people don't have families to go back to, so they have those kind of like orphan Thanksgiving dinners, you know, or a bunch of just friends get together. So that's going to be a big, I think, miss this opportunity or this Thanksgiving season as well. Big missed opportunity there.
I feel like, I mean, our family's changed from like the kind of blue plate special of holiday meals of my Nana's age, where it was like dinner, Christmas and Thanksgiving dinner were at like 4 o'clock, which I always thought was insane, but whatever. So I think there is that movement there. But I think when Trudeau was talking like after the throne speech, when he gave that kind of like thinly veiled passive aggressive threat of the like, well, Thanksgiving's done, but maybe Christmas. So like the dog treat of be good now and maybe we can have it later. I think that was actually kind of a really smart move because like I think people are more willing to bend on Thanksgiving time, maybe, I don't know, and for the hope that maybe we might get Christmas, but there's no promise that anything's going to change better for them, especially like kids at school always get sick. Like it's not just a COVID thing. They come home and they're tiny little germ things and it's always a thing. So I don't know. I think that was a smart move because maybe it'll kind of incentivize being good. But at the same time, who knows? It's going to be an interesting day 2 weeks after Thanksgiving when we see those numbers.
The second, the third, and the fourth wave are just going to combine together. One massive tsunami.
Yeah.
But so I think the best suggestion we got here, I mean, I don't even know if it works yet, but like in terms of when you said everyone has to have their Zoom dish, I mean, because I think that it struck me that you're right. When you talk about people, you always rely on that one person, Ryan, like you said, like that one person who creates that dish, you rely on them to bring it together. So is it possible to do that Zoom session that Ryan suggested? Mary Berg, like you're the one that teaches people how to cook all the time from television. How do we set that up? And you guys feel free to help out Mary Berg because I know she does it for a wide audience. But how do you set this up in a network of people? How do you get your Nana to teach us how to make her meringue pie through Zoom?
I mean, I feel like that's the tricky thing. I think everybody, then it's just FaceTime, and then you can maybe branch out into WhatsApp because then you can have, I think, like 6 people on a call. But I think it's a great idea. And I think like teaching those recipes, the tricky thing is that a lot of those recipes are what I call like grandma recipes, which are the ones where you ask them how they do it. And they're like a cup of flour, but the cup is like a mug. It's not an actual metric measurement. So you have no idea how to actually do it on your own. But that's
or like a fistful of baking soda.
Yeah, or enough water. And you're like, what does that mean? And I think that's kind of the charm in those recipes. So in my mind, if your family is the type that is maybe less perfectionist, then it could work where someone does kind of give you the recipe and maybe you don't do it over Zoom, or maybe you take a day aside and Nana sends everybody her recipe and you all make it and then you compare. And then hopefully have some like horrible flops, because I don't think anything brings fun like some terrible pie, like truly atrocious pies. But I think it's a really, it's a neat bonding activity that you can do that never would have happened in a time outside of this. and kind of putting your spin on it. I think I think actually doing it, I mean, the magic of TV is that there's so many swaps. Like the amount of, when I'm making one pie on TV, there's really like 6 pies. So I'm not telling anyone to do that because that would suck. But I think, or even taking it a different way, if you are lucky to be close enough to your family to do kind of drive-by drop-offs of things, have someone make 6 pies and then drop it off amongst everybody, or have someone make the potatoes and drop it off. Which would be, I think, a really cool way to kind of actually be eating the same thing without actually being together.
That's smart.
Yeah. I think we know how we're going to do with Thanksgiving now.
Nothing I can think of. I mean, my family's pretty straightforward, so I'm kind of expecting more of the same from my boring family.
I like your family's takeout idea, though. I think the takeout ideas are really smart because there's a lot of restaurants doing even up here, where I am, north of the city, there's a lot of restaurants doing like a Thanksgiving takeout meal with turkey, with the fixings, and then you can all kind of get it from the same place, which is great because then you're also supporting local, which is awesome.
Totally, yeah. I mean, that was something that my mom came up with because, you know, I have 3 sisters, so it's, 4 kids. So when we were all young, I think she just gave up cooking and was like, yo, I can't feed these hyenas, let's just buy a giant frozen lasagna or this. So we got used to that, and then it was that exact thing, Mary, was that, hey, let's buy local and let's find out and get away from the Walmart turkeys or whatever, because there are so many. I think that's the beauty. There's such a interesting silver lining in a lot of little things during this pandemic, and that's definitely been the beauty of this for me, was finding those local store. Like, I haven't been to the Metro. That's my closest grocery store. I haven't been there in months, but I've been to Fresh City. I've been to Unbox Market, and just finding those smaller local sellers has been such a gift.
Also, too, I think for like families that traditionally put a lot into the cooking, takeout could be hard if you were doing it from, I don't know, like if you're getting McDelivery, like it's not going to replace that feeling of Thanksgiving. But
let's Uber Eats our turkey. Yeah.
Yeah. But a trend I've been seeing is like, there's been a lot of like great home cooks who are offering, like, whether it's pickup or delivery. So you probably be more likely to get that kind of like really close to home cooking type meal as an option. So I think when we're suggesting, looking at takeout, it's not just doing it like big box or from your normal place. Like maybe do a little bit of exploring and find somebody who's doing unique things, right?
Well, I think even there's like in Toronto, Côte de Boeuf has turkeys that are like a reasonable size. Like you can get a 10-pound turkey, which is a lot, but that would be good for making and then making soup and then popping in the freezer or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too. You're not going to Metro and buying like a 47-pound turkey because no one needs that right now.
Yeah.
You're able to kind of buy those smaller birds that, again, don't often sell as well because people aren't looking for them. But going to like restaurants and picking things up and even just like uncooked, like their meat, they're from their providers to helping kind of do that. Like I know Bellwoods also does like a veggie box. I think it's like $25 or something a week. And you get enough for 2 people for like a week's worth of veggies and some eggs and whatever. And I think it's really cool seeing how people have shifted. And like Kris was saying, finding places in your neighborhood that can actually provide you with things that are a little different than going to the grocery store, and kind of spreading your spending out a little bit.
Okay, so do you guys remember this Fresh Prince episode where the kids had to make Thanksgiving dinner and the turkey was frozen, the yams were burnt, right? I feel like there's going to be a lot of that this Thanksgiving weekend with people trying to make their dishes. All right, Ryan, Kris, Mary, thank you so much for joining us for Thanksgiving, and enjoy the holiday.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Nice to meet you guys.
Yeah,
Nice to meet you
same.
guys, too.
Absolutely.
Right in a little square, everybody.
Perfect.